Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. I'm just going to check to make sure that we have everybody that we're expecting on the call, and then we'll get started. I see all of the counselors that I expected, and then I see John Jackson. Now we do have some presenters for the delegation section of our meeting. Just so Cecilia Parks is one of them, and I see she is here. Brad Siegel, Brad, are you on the call? I see a couple of phone numbers I don't recognize. If you are on the call, perhaps you could just unmute and let me know that you're here. How about Ken Black? Ken, are you there?
Gary Monahan's on the call, on the president of the Lorimer Lake Association. I know Brad's going to be joining us, and I'm just going to make sure he has the proper link to join us, but his intent is to join the call.
Okay. I just in case he was thinking that he would not come up on the call until the very end, under correspondence, the end of the agenda, what I was hoping to do was to group all of the presentations and discussions that involve Lorimer Lake right at the delegation time at the beginning of the meeting. So if there's any way that you could let him know that, I mean, if he doesn't make it till later in the call, we'll leave it until correspondence, but I thought might as well have them all together.
Mayor Comrie, this is Michelle Henry. I did give Brad a call, and I left a message for him and let him know that the petition would be moved up.
Yeah.
What I'm not sure is whether he got the message or not.
Well, we'll carry on and see, and if he doesn't, then we'll give him his slot when he does join us. So I have Councilors Beth Gorham Matthews, Councilor Joe McEwen, Councilor Brian Woods. Councilor Joe Lamb has sent his regrets for this meeting. From our staff, we have Michelle Hendry, our CAO clerk. I see Bob Whitman's number there in the fire department. So Bob Whitman is on, and Judith Mines, our deputy clerk, is also on, and John Jackson, our planner. Have I missed anyone, Madam Clerk? Actually,
it's not Judy Mainst. It is Councillor Gorham Matthews is utilizing Judy's link.
Oh, oh, all right. Okay, so
and I did rename it.
I think what happened was I used it for the environmental committee the other night, and for some reason I keep getting called Judy now. So
no, she did show up in the.
Yeah, that
okay. You fixed it. You fixed it. Sorry. Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry.
All right, not a problem. And we have some guest presenters, and I will introduce them. But for the rest of you who are on the call, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Just to let you know, we did have a closed session at the beginning, so we're actually starting at item 4 on the agenda. And the first item of business is to play the national anthem. We don't seem to be getting any audio, Michelle.
Sorry, did I hear, Mr. Mayor, you say there was no volume on the?
There was
open
no
internet?
audio at all that,
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I've got I'm unmuted, so I guess it was just a visual today. Sorry about that. I'll have to see what went wrong.
okay, well, I hope it's not, I hope it's not a sign of what to expect from our new federal government. In
I
any
could hear it, but I'm sorry everyone
Yeah.
else couldn't.
All right, yes, all right, well, we won't, we won't keep trying to get it going. We'll just check it out for another time. So next, I will read the land acknowledgement. But I have to get it up on the screen. It was there a minute ago. Please bear with me for a second. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I will now ask councillors if they have any pecuniary interest to declare. And I will start off by declaring an interest in item 8.4, which is a consent application relating to property that my family owns. So when we come to that particular item, I will not be voting on it. Are there any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, I will note that that's the only one. And now I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda. And what I was hoping that we could have the following wording for this motion. That the agenda for this meeting be adopted as presented with item G of correspondence. Move to item 7.3 under delegations, and item 7.3 is the petition from Lorimer Lake residents, and I see that it looks as if Brad is on the call at the moment. Anyway, we'll so could I get a mover and seconder to move the agenda with that minor variation, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second.
I'll second, Councillor McEwen.
Okay, I heard Councillor Gorman Matthews first, so we'll, anything further on the agenda? Okay, thank you. We have that approved. And then we have one matter, or two actually, from the closed session that have resolutions attached to them. The first one is to approve the minutes of the closed session on September 7th, 2021. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please?
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll
I'll
second.
second, Councilor Woods.
okay, we'll take Councillor Woods this time. All right, so any further discussion? Any opposed? Thank you. Those minutes are approved. And finally, we have a resolution with respect to an item that was raised on which there was a legal opinion, which is why it was in closed, but it was discussed in closed. And I have a motion that I'll read to you, and hopefully we can get a mover and seconder. The motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive report admin-2021-13, which is entitled Jarvis Street Road Allowance. Johnson family request for the removal of the storage shed and the well, and that the well be filled in for information purposes. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone permit Mr. Michael Tylak to remove the shed from Jarvis Street onto his own property, and that staff be requested to proceed with the decommissioning of the well located on Jarvis Street. And just for those of you in the audience who perhaps aren't familiar with this, Jarvis Street is a non-opened road allowance that runs off Highway 520, and what had happened in the past was that there was a well had been put on it, which has since been abandoned, and a shed. And the shed really belongs to the adjoining property or the neighboring property, and the current owner of that property has agreed to remove it. So this is simply to correct an encroachment that has existed for some period of time. So could I get a mover and seconder for the motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Gorman Matthews, seconded by,
I'll second.
I'll second, Councilor Woods.
Okay.
oh, okay,
Councilor
thank you.
Woods.
Councillor Woods. All right, thank you. Any discussion on this one? Any opposed? All right, thank you. That motion is carried. That brings us to section 7 of our agenda. And we have, hopefully we have 3 presentations, all from representatives of the folks on Lorimer Lake. The first presenter I have listed is Cecilia Parks. So Cecilia, if you would like to proceed. And I don't know, perhaps, what we'll do is we'll stop after each one and provide an opportunity for questions. So the
Okay,
floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
okay. Well, thank you to Mayor Comrie and the members of council for giving me the opportunity to present the information regarding Lorimer Lake and our request to make amendments to the official plan. And I've provided you all with a detailed report. And today I'm just going to be going briefly over some of the major points of that report. The Lorimer Lake Association has a strong membership base, and our membership averages about 80 members per year. We have an elected board of directors, and the primary objective of the Lorimer Lake Association is to preserve and enhance Lorimer Lake and its surrounding environment. In order to accomplish this task, we have been given the mandate to undertake activities to monitor, protect, and enhance water quality by working with municipalities and the federal and provincial governments. We have taken various surveys in the past and have determined that the majority of the people on the lake would like to preserve the wilderness experience, limit development, and maintain a minimal allowable shoreline frontage in order to protect our lake quality. The consolidated June 2nd, 2016 official plan for the municipality of Whitestone, section 17.06.1, stated that Lorimer Lake is managed as a lake trout lake, and the lake has been identified as being at capacity. New lot creation may only be considered in accordance with the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook. It has long been recognized that Lorimer Lake is at capacity and needs protection. The Lakeshore Capacity Handbook on page 24 states that the Ministry of the Environment's Lakeshore Capacity Model is based on the total phosphorus concentration or the nutrient content of a lake. This handbook provides an accurate and measurable link between the level of shoreline development and the level of phosphorus in a lake. The information can be used to predict the impacts of development on water clarity and deep water oxygen content. On page 36 of the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook, it goes on to state that lakes can be modeled to determine what their carrying capacities are with respect to phosphorus loading from shoreline development. This modeling takes into account vacant lots of record and also incorporates assumptions regarding the background or undeveloped conditions of the lake. The Ministry of Natural Resources information package published in October 2002 indicated that the Ministry of the Environment and the Ministry of Natural Resources, using the Lakeshore Capacity Model, predict the impacts that development have on lake trout habitat in cold water lakes. Lake trout have two basic water quality requirements: low water temperature and high levels of dissolved oxygen. When phosphorus is added to the lake, it stimulates algae growth, which depletes the dissolved oxygen. When there's an excess of algae produced and eventually it dies and settles to the bottom of the lake, oxygen is consumed, and this creates insufficient oxygen levels. Through the Lakeshore Capacity Modeling, the Ministry of Natural Resources has indicated that Trout Lake and Lorimer Lake are at capacity for new development, taking into account the number of existing undeveloped lots that will eventually be developed. However, there have been some new developments on Lorimer Lake on existing lots, some severances on the lake, and also a proposed redevelopment of the Lorimer Lake Resort. It is really important to note that any new development proposed by the Lorimer Lake Resort should be governed by the regulations of the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook. Therefore, certain water and soil quality tests, as well as other monitoring guidelines, should be conducted for new lots created on Lorimer Lake. And we'll go over this in more detail in a few minutes. Climate change and the fact that more and more people are making their cottages year-round residents will also contribute to a decrease in our lake quality. Climate change is real, and the stress on cold water lakes like Lorimer can be devastating for the quality of the lake. In a 2016 report written by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, it noted that lake trout, being so fragile, can be a good indicator of our fragile aquatic ecosystem. It also states that only 1% of Ontario lakes contain lake trout. And it goes on to say that lake trout lakes are very vulnerable to the impacts of human activities, including the effects of cottage septic systems. Some quick facts about Lorimer. Lorimer is a cold water oligotrophic lake, which is at capacity and has been labeled as a lake trout lake. Lorimer is a deep lake, and lake trout like to live in the deep, dark, cold waters. The maximum depth of Lorimer is 80 feet, reported by the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources in May 2001. The total surface area is 1,210 acres. The Ministry of Natural Resources has continued to stock Lorimer Lake with trout every 2 years. They are confident the trout are surviving and thriving. We have been able to maintain a trout population on Lorimer Lake, and we have been catching not only the clipped fish, but also the unclipped fish, which is very positive. The Lorimer Lake Association has kept photos and statistics on the lake trout in our lake. However, we must maintain our lake quality to protect this fragile species. I'm now going to go over briefly some of the water quality data for Lorimer Lake. The Lorimer Lake Association has been monitoring phosphorus, water clarity, and calcium levels consistently. They have remained basically stable for the last number of years. This is good news, but it hides the fact that our lake is extremely fragile. Lorimer Lake works with the Lake Partners Program for water testing. We have provided graphs of our water testing data on the full report for your review. In terms of water clarity, the data from the Lake Partners Program shows that more than half of the lakes, or 55% across Ontario, have high transparency with a SECI depth of more than 4 meters. Lorimer Lake has in the past 6 years maintained a SECI depth of over 4 meters, which is positive. According to the Lake Partners Program, the average total phosphorus concentration for oligotrophic lakes is 0 to 10 micrograms per liter. Lorimer Lake has had fairly stable concentrations of phosphorus and has maintained readings below 10 micrograms per liter. Calcium is also a very important nutrient for all living species. Low calcium levels of calcium can affect the growth, reproduction, and survival of many species. Lorimer Lake has maintained consistent moderate calcium levels over the last 12 years, and levels of 3.1 to 20 milligrams per liter are considered to be moderate. Now, with regards to dissolved oxygen, unfortunately, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Ministry of the Environment have not had the resources to measure Lorimer Lake's dissolved oxygen levels in recent years. However, past testing up to and including 2013 showed that dissolved oxygen levels in Lorimer Lake were mostly at marginal or below marginal levels. The dissolved oxygen level chart, which is on the full report, shows that in 2013 we had below marginal oxygen levels. Despite this, as we mentioned, the lake trout on Lorimer continue to survive. However, it would not take much degradation in the dissolved oxygen levels to drastically change the mortality of our lake trout. Now, some brand new information that I just received a few days ago that I wasn't able to include on the report. The Whitestone Conservation Association has also been monitoring the dissolved oxygen content in Lorimer Lake and has recently provided me with some information and data for the last 4 years of dissolved oxygen. This data demonstrates that at certain depths and temperature readings that are favorable to lake trout, we have a dissolved oxygen content that is suitable for lake trout to survive. The two major factors that affect dissolved oxygen levels are phosphorus and water temperatures, with climate change, the lake will be under stress naturally. As the lake waters warm, the dissolved oxygen levels drop. I'm just briefly going to go over the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook regulations. The official plan with reference to Lorimer Lake states that any new lot creation may only be considered in accordance with the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook. And it's important to note that even new lot creation that follows the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook can cause shoreline degradation, deforestation, chemicals such as fertilizers entering the lake, and increased boat traffic. The guidelines of the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook should be followed for any new lot created, including the new buildings currently being proposed by the Lorimer Lake Resort property that has recently been purchased. The Lakeshore Capacity Handbook states that any new lots created on Lorimer must have their septic systems 300 meters from the lake. And there are other restrictions that are outlined in the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook regarding lakes that are at capacity, which we have included in the full report. These restrictions include the design of septic systems, the provision of a 30-meter minimum undisturbed shoreline buffer and soils mantle, specifics in terms of stormwater management and the location of tile bed. It also details site-specific soil investigation requirements, the monitoring required of the sewage disposal system, and short-term as well as long-term reports that should be sent to the Planning Approval Authority and the Ministry of the Environment. The Lakeshore Capacity Handbook offers no restrictions in terms of septic tanks and where they can be located and how close to the lake they can be placed. It is a well-known fact that septic tanks leak from time to time and that the affluent from drainage pipes that are transported to septic tile fields can also burst and cause leakage. This can cause a great deal of phosphorus loading in the lake. More development means more changes of this happening. I will now briefly go over the requests of council. Lorimer Lake is a headwater lake for the Seguin water system. Any new lot creation would only intensify the problem of the lake already having below marginal dissolved oxygen levels. It is not enough to have the guidelines put out by the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook to protect Lorimer Lake. These guidelines allow for development under certain restrictions. Lorimer Lake, with its unique characteristics, should have certain restrictions in place in terms of development. Therefore, it is imperative that we continue to have guidelines in place that were on the November 2003 official plan for Lorimer Lake, which lead to protecting the development of our fragile ecosystem. These guidelines were not included in the 2016 consolidated June 2nd official plan. Previously, for a period of 10 years, no severances were allowed on Lorimer Lake, followed by another 10-year period where only one new severance was allowed per year. There are currently no such regulations. Some important policies regarding Lorimer Lake that were on the official plan dated November 2003 are not included, as I mentioned, in the June 2016 official plan. And we wanted to mention those as well as some additions that we would like to make and regarding the official plan that is currently under review. Number one, please keep the wording from the consolidated June 2nd, 2016 official plan. And this is in section 17.06.1, which states that Lorimer Lake is managed as a lake trout lake and the lake has been identified as being at capacity. New lot creation may only be considered in accordance with the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook. Number two, please add the following to the official plan currently under review. Only one new lot can be severed per year on Lorimer Lake as a whole, with no opportunity to roll over the yearly allotment. It is important to note that this is similar to the policies on the December 2003 official plan, which is included in the full report. The Lorimer Lake Cottage Association feels that it is very important we limit the lot creation to one per year for the whole lake, which includes the portion that is in the municipality of Whitestone and the portion in the municipality of McDougall. We will continue to monitor lake quality and would like to revisit this in 5 years. Number 5, we would like to add the following to the official plan that is currently under review. New lot frontage to be at least 150 meters and lot areas no less than 2.25 hectares with no jutting between the setback and the shoreline. This statement is similar to section 17.06.3 of the 2000 official plan, but also adds the phrase with no jutting between the setback and the shoreline to be sure that this does not occur. To protect Lorimer Lake's wilderness appeal and water quality, the requirements of lots having 150 meters of frontage fits into the context of the Whitestone official plan and zoning bylaw. This minimum frontage would also act to distribute the development rights among property owners equitably. The current Whitestone official plan requires larger lot sizes on other lakes in the municipality, including 100 meters of frontage for Wawakesh and 150 frontage for La Brache Lake. Lorimer Lake is designated as W1 or waterfront residential, and as such, the zoning bylaws dated February 2008 dictate only a minimum frontage of 90 meters. This, if allowed, would certainly create a decrease in lake quality and a decrease in the wilderness feeling that we treasure. We appreciate very much the work that the municipality is doing on the revisions to the official plan, and thank you very, very much for your time in reviewing this information.
Well, thank you, Cecilia, for your very thorough report. I will open the floor up to councilors' questions or comments. Go ahead, Councilor McEwen.
Yeah, Cecilia, thank you very much for the report and the terrific update on the status and past status of your lake. I guess since back when we did the official plan and again during bylaw time, we get really immersed in this and go over a lot of this detail, and then we get on with business, and I guess it kind of sits there kind of in abeyance. But for you to bring out some numbers like now it's 90 meters and you want longer shorelines considered, I think it's opportune to get that information to us ahead of time. And the reassurance of locations of septics, that's an interesting one, and it always interests me a great deal to ensure that we don't get phosphorus. When we head into of things on properties. Updates.
Sorry, Councilor McEwen, you're breaking up a bit. I don't know. It might help if you were to switch your video off for a second. Sounds like you're short of bandwidth.
Is clear.
I believe we lost him from the call.
Well, thank you for his feedback, and I did get most of what he said. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
While we're waiting for Councilor McEwen to rejoin, are there other questions or comments? Councilor Gorham Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Cecilia. We've emailed a little bit back and forth. I'm just curious, could you comment on what the what McDougall is doing? Do they have similar bylaws and setbacks as what you're asking from Whitestone? You know, because we're a shared lake with that municipality, I'm just wondering, is it fair across the board on the whole lake, or have you had the similar request to McDougall?
Thank you. That's a great question. We are in the process of putting together a letter to the municipality of McDougall. They are just now starting to revise their official plan. And that's on my agenda for next week. I'm going to be putting something together. Currently, we have pretty well the same restrictions that we do in terms of Whitestone for Lorimer Lake itself. And unfortunately, for some reason or another, in 2004, the official plan did include Lorimer Lake specifically and had a number of these restrictions in place for both McDougall and for Whitestone. And they, in 2003, and they weren't put forth for the 2016 consolidated June 2nd plan. So we're going to be working on that as well.
Counselor, sorry, were you going to respond to Counselor Gore Matthews?
No, I was just doing a thumbs up, so I didn't have to respond.
Oh, okay, sorry. Counselor McEwen, did you want to try again?
Was I totally lost on that discussion? My blurb earlier?
Not totally, but the last minute or so before you were cut off, we really couldn't hear you. At least I couldn't.
Okay, I actually lost my video totally there. So, yeah, I was basically thanking Cecilia more than anything. Certainly appreciative of bringing all that information forward at this time in advance of, OPs and another zoning bylaw coming up in not too long distant future. It's interesting to see that working with Lake Partners, you're obtaining information, and WCA, I guess that'd be Dennis and Company, they provide you with phosphorus data and oxygen levels and different things also. Not phosphorus, but the water quality.
Yes.
So that's an ongoing partnership.
Yes, exactly.
Great. That's
yes,
great.
Very good partnership there.
Okay. And I don't know if I had mentioned that you brought up some numbers like the length of shoreline. I know we have various lengths within different water front regulations sort of thing as zoning goes. And they are as long as 150 feet in some areas, some locations. So certainly something to consider for you folks. I know you have vast tracts of land, large frontages, and the whole kicker there. So hope we don't speak out of term and encumber somebody who will come and knock on my door. But certainly in that particular type of lake and that setting, something that's really worth looking at and discussing with you folks. And then the handbook itself, the LCPH, I've gone over that a couple of times vigorously, and it can be very, very onerous, but very specific and good in ways. The distances back from shores, and as you mentioned, to septics from shorelines, and to get into drainage going away from the lake scenarios, and the protection of lakes from phosphorus and all that. So they're certainly a probably stringent model, but it's a good model to be referencing, I think. So,
very much so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you to everybody, and we really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor, if
Woods?
I could.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Cecilia and the association over there on Lorimer Lake. This is quite the report, that's for sure. There's a lot of good information in here. Just a comment though, and I think this is one that maybe everyone will appreciate. I think whenever we've spoken to anybody from any of our associations, the one thing that always gets brought up is septics and septic conditions. And I know I've said this before, I think it was Gooseneck Lake Association when they had talked about septics in their report. Maybe it's time we start looking at instituting a mandatory septic reinspection every so many years for all waterfront properties. So I know that a leaking septic can be very hazardous to water quality, health in all of our lakes, and it's probably something we should end up looking at. But I'd just like to thank the association for all the information and the work that they put in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your time. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your support.
So I was going to just make a comment, and then perhaps our planner is listening to this, and maybe John, you can comment. And this is in reference to the fact that between the previous official plan and the current one that we're on, as you've noted, Cecilia, a fair bit of the descriptive material around Lorimer Lake was taken out. And my understanding as to why that was done was that we were basically saying this Lorimer Lake is at capacity for development. And to be honest, if anybody had said to me, well, what about, submitting an application for a severance or whatever, I would have said, forget it, it's at capacity. But then I see that there's this little wiggle room provided by the reference to the Lakeshore, the LCAH, the handbook. And, I'm not sure practically what that means. I would be interested, John, if you could comment on this as to whether, in fact, like, I'm not aware, since that was put in place, I'm not aware that there have been any severances. I would say not in Whitestone, there haven't approved on Lorimer Lake, but unless my memory is faulty, yeah. John, can you?
Well, the LCAH, when it talks about residual capacity on a lake trout lake, is fairly simple, and that is that if you can place a septic system 1,000 feet back from the shoreline, it's deemed not to be a lake impact lot. And I don't think there's been one in the east half of the lake or in the Whitestone jurisdiction of the lake, but I think there might have been one on the McDougall side. But if you break down that, because Lakeshore Capacity Handbook, that's fundamentally its sole criteria, which is as long as you are 1,000 feet back with a septic system, it's under those conditions, it's deemed not to impact the lake.
And then, of course, the quality testing and the soil mantle and so on that need to be reported back to from the planning board and also from the municipality. If there were to be given any severances, this the testing is imperative, right? Very important, which we want to make sure that we see happening.
So following on to that, then, I guess my question is, why did we bother to put that reference to the LCAH in there? Why didn't we just say no new lot creation? Because we have some lakes. We have some lakes where that is where that is the situation. Am I not correct?
Where we have
No new lot creation, period. Never mind any special conditions under which you might be able to create a new lot.
I'm trying to think if there are such water bodies, but if I recall, I think it was the association that actually requested that the LCAH apply to the lake trout lakes. I think that was my recollection of the approach taken. And I can't think of a lake that's designated. Usually, for example, warm water fisheries don't have well, the reality is they're not a provincial interest. Only lake trout lakes fall into a category of a provincial interest. So it's the province that has adopted this notion that they only have an interest in Lorimer and Fairholme Lake. There's probably another one.
Yeah, limestone. Yeah.
I think limestone.
It's not a trout lake.
No, it doesn't have the depth. So that history, I think, was, as I recall it, but the submission can be looked at, and obviously council will have it reviewed as part of the update as it comes along.
Thank you. I was actually on the board at that time during the 2003 and then also the 2016 and even prior to 2003. I do remember that the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook was presented to us. And at that time, we did feel that it would offer some good restrictions. However, it was also presented that we would be able to, well, we actually, the Lorimer Lake Association at the time asked that we would be able to maintain the other restrictions as well. So this is why we want to make sure that those are put back into place. And that's, again, the 150 feet of frontage. And also, just going to grab them again, the very back page here. The 150 feet of frontage, and of course, the one new lot severed per year on Lorimer Lake as a whole. So those are the two ones that we would like to add onto the official plan. And of course, keep the wording of the 2016 official plan 17.06, which mentions that we are a lake trout lake identified as being at capacity, and new lot creation may only be considered in accordance to the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook. I think the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook for us and other lakes that are similar to us can offer a lot of protection. But again, as I mentioned, it's really important that the restrictions be followed and that the testing be done. And it's up to 10 years after a lot creation where there's soil and water testing that need to be reported back to council through the planning department. And that's something that Lorimer Lake would really like to see if there was any severances. Very, very important, please.
Okay, well, thank you. I think, I again, appreciate all the effort that went into your presentation, and
Thank you.
we will be looking at recommendations that we're getting from some of the lake associations in regard to the official plan, and I'm sure council will have a discussion at a subsequent meeting and figure out how we want to sort of manage this and bring it forward. So, but I'd like to move on, if possible, now to 7.2, which was a presentation by Brad Siegel in regard to parking and docking. And again, it's for this is also on Lorimer Lake, involving folks who have water access properties that they have historically accessed, I believe, through the Lorimer Lake Resort. So are we ready for that presentation? Can Brad, are you going to do it, or is it someone else?
Brad's on the call and Brad's going to do it. He may not have pressed mute or something.
No, he's not muted. I see his name there. I think you can go ahead, Brad. We're not hearing you. are you, let me see, are you on? You're not on a cell phone and you've got cell phone muted or something like that? Well,
Yeah, I don't have Brad's presentation, and he may kick in here and start, but I'll just so we don't lose the moment. Essentially on Lorimer Lake, there's only one, as we talked about last council meeting, there's only one public launch on the lake, and that's for everyone on the lake, both people which are on the mainland and the water access only. And then for the water access only, there's only one location where there's the dockage and the parking, which is the Lorimer Lake Resort. And the people at the Lorimer Lake Resort have been very friendly when I've talked to them, and they're what they've said to me is that they do plan to keep the dockage and the parking and the landing open, but they've already, as an example, really raised the rates for people to park their boats next year, and we're just one business decision away from them closing that. So especially for the water access only people who need to have a place to dock and to be able to park, and then for everyone on the lake to be able to launch their boats, we need to have a public or a municipal landing. And we were hoping that combined with McDougall, that we could come up with a solution for that. And, you know, there's no expectation that there'd be a solution put forward on this call, more just an understanding of that there is a need for it and that we need to move forward. As I said, our situation could change tomorrow type of thing. So there is a sense of urgency in our association, and probably that was the number one thing that people came to me this year, was the concern about being able to get on the water and for the water access only people to dock their boats and park. So and we also are talking to McDougall exactly the same as we are with the 5-year plan changes. And I believe that Tim Hunt from McDougall is going to be talking to Wes at the Lorimer Lake Resort here in the near future. So both municipalities, we hope, you know, we can engage in this solution.
okay, thank you. I see Brad I see your face now and your microphone's unmuted. Do you want to try again? That's that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. Basically, Gary covered what I wanted to talk about. Basically, the fact that with the sale of the marina, they're not running it as a marina in the future, but they are allowing access via launch your boat and take your boat out, and keeping the slips open to the public at this point. But we're concerned in the future what they're going to do. Other marinas have closed or changed ownership, and when they've changed ownership, they've shut down that access to the lake. That's our biggest concern, is the fact that there's only one marina and one boat launch available to people to access the lake. And if they close down or shut down that access to the people, there's no public boat launch on our lake. So we're looking at both Whitestone and McDougall to look into a location for a boat launch so that everyone can have access to the lake that has
And the other
properties on the lake.
the other thing, and just to go along with Brad here, is that also there's access to contractors, whether they come to pump out septic systems on the water access or install new septic systems, or whatever a contractor may do, whether it's upgrades to buildings, whatever. So it's not only just restricted to people on the lake, but also, you know, it'd be a great benefit to contractors.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if I believe that Ken Black is also on the call, and Ken had submitted a petition which appeared as item G, I believe, in the correspondence. And it's really about the same. It's asking us to get involved in trying to find a solution to the problem that you're talking about. So maybe we could hear from him, and then we could have, again, see if get some questions from counselors. Ken, are you?
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. Thanks for having me on this evening. Been on the lake 45 years. We've had water access property since 1985. Up until this point, Lorimer Lake Resort has always been a ma and pa operation and has provided good service. So we've had no reason, other than with the 7 owner changes we've seen in the past years. Each time there's obviously a concern. In this particular case, the concern is now a investment group, and they have made it known to us that their intentions are to redevelop where our boats are currently docked. They want to reclaim that shoreline, get rid of the boats, get rid of everything else. We, as we call ourselves boat people, because we're refugees looking for a spot, have had a meeting with them on Saturday. And for the first time, we actually got a timeline. And Wes had said to us about 3 to 5 years. So he is they are continuing to work with us as far as docking and parking, but there is an end to it. Immediately adjacent to the marina, there's an unopened road allowance. We've always known it was there. We've never petitioned to get it opened, for the simple reason that one of the cottages happens to sit 3/4 onto that right away. As a ma and pa operation, that would greatly affect their bottom line if we forced that. In this particular case, we see the problem in it's hit and miss as to whether they allow people to use the boat launch, even though they're charging. There was an incident a couple of weeks ago. One of the neighbors had company coming up, wanted to launch their pontoon boat, and they said no, even though they charge for the service. So it's there. If you're associated, whether you're camping there or docked there seems to be no problem at this point. The other thing too, actually Sunday afternoon on my way down the lake, we were stopped by the OPP. And I took the opportunity, they checked us for safety equipment, everything was fine. And when we were done, I asked, do you mind telling me where you got on the lake? And they said they got on at Grey Owl. Well, I said to them, do you realize that that's private and it's posted? Because my concern is I would hate to see them do their work and the charges be thrown out on a technicality because they don't have written permission to use that launch. So they are actually going to look into that themselves. And they asked if there was any other public launch on the lake, and there isn't. There is no public launch anywhere on Lorimer Lake. It's all privately owned and operated. So emergency services is a concern. Ongoing proper maintenance for septic contractors. The Lorimer Lake Resort did allow a tandem axle tanker in with a barge. Joanna, Wes's wife, said yes. Wes was a little annoyed. It cost them 2 loads of gravel and half a day to fix the parking lot for $20. So I don't think that'll be happening again. So anyways, what we're looking at in the petition is that section of the right of way from Swords to the lake to be opened as day use. And if MOE allows a boat launch there, and then across Swords Road, the right of way continues. Now, in the petition, it's kind of worded like we're looking for you to provide us the dedicated parking. We are more than willing to look after that part of it ourselves. I've already spoken to both landowners on either side. Both would waive their right of refusal for the purchase on half of the right of way to about a depth of about, I think it's around 165 feet, somewhere in there. Then we run into a geographical issue. I've also spoken to Andrew Tuck. He has about 1/4 of an acre adjacent to that. That is the allowance is on one side. The other side is the inflow from Fairholme. For us to purchase that to make our parking large enough. And then the other unique thing about this area is the flooded lands offshore. Both properties either side of the right of way, their property lines are approximately, excuse me, approximately 200 feet from the current high water. So what we would be looking for, we're assuming that the right of way would be the same. What we'd be looking for is permission to push our floating dock system out to the 200 feet anchored over top of the right of way with a floating walkway. So it leaves the launch accessible. The boats are out of the sensitive shoreline area and the docks. And basically the public portion of it is from Swords to the lake. It also allows, being a year-round road, for the ability for you to plow, or the township to plow, a half a dozen parking spots. Because in the winter, other than parking snow routes, there's nowhere to park in order to get to your cottage if you want to come in for the family day weekend or whatever. So that's kind of what I'm looking to open the conversation on. Oh, not hearing you.
Thank you for that, Ken. Can I open it up to counselors, please, for questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess if no one else takes off first, I will. Thanks, Brad and Ken. Appreciate your comments and the work you're doing on this. I'm quite familiar with that road allowance. I was with Hydro over the years, and back as long ago as the 80s and 90s, Hydro put barges with heavy equipment right down through that road allowance, through the brambles and everything else. And we used to launch little 14-foot boats with 4x4s, rough as it was, but we did it. It's been an ongoing issue, even with Hydro in the day, to have a permission to use the boat launch in the resort. And on the other end of the lake, as you say, it's all private launches and such, and that was always an issue down there as well on the McDougall end. So yeah, it's a small, narrow entrance because it's only the width of 6 feet. And I actually went down today, as a matter of fact, and looked it over just to get a better feel for it. And interestingly, I did look up in where the road allowance crosses the road, and there is some distance from that hill, the wet area, how far back in you could go. You say 160-some feet or such. I don't know if you maybe go farther than that, but you're getting into a really big wet area over on the far side. But it sounds like you've certainly looked it over and thought it out in your minds in some detail. So on that particular, the 124 end of the lake, there are not a lot of options. I guess that's one could be worth looking at working toward, utilizing if possible anyway, that entrance to the lake, it's fairly gradual right off Lorimer Lake Road there as well. That's one little advantage to it. As often has it, they drop right off over a cliff or something, then a road allowance, but and then the docking systems you're talking about putting in, that's environmental and a lot of logistics to get past that one. But
Well,
just one question. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the docking systems I forgot to include, that would be something we would own ourselves. Ultimately, as a group, what we're looking to do is own our docks and own our parking. And that way we can actually attach the shares to the water access properties. So the actual equity in it is attached to your property, where the actual share price will never change. So we don't get into people playing games, selling the shares, trying to make more money on them. But that still has to be structured as of yet.
What about the access down the road allowance for non-cottage folks out there, people going fishing and that kind of thing?
Well, what it would be,
issue.
our docking system would be about 50 feet wide and about 112 feet long, which would house 20 boats, because there's 22 water access properties in Whitestone currently. There's another 20 in McDougall. But that would push, with the docking system pushed out to the western boundary, that leaves around 100 feet between the docks and the boat launch. And then the actual, from the shore to Swords would become day use only. So to be able to back your boat in, offload it, and a spot for a couple people to park if they want to come for the day and go out with a friend on a boat or whatever. So that part of it remains in control, remains pretty much totally public. Ideally, we're kind of protective of the lake. It'd be nice if we could put a gate on the boat launch with a keypad, but to control who's on the lake, because unfortunately those who won't pay $20 at the marina are not the type of people that we want on the lake. So
yeah, sometimes we can't pick and choose, so we have
no, and
lake
being
visitors,
public.
Yeah. Okay, that's good that you're thinking that way a little bit anyway. I know space is going to be at such a premium for parking. You mentioned, oh God, who'd you say lives or has the property next door there?
On one side is Jim and Marion Bolander, and I've spoke to Jim.
On the hill, yeah.
On the other side is Andrew and Rose Tuck, and Rose was a green. So that was
I know that well. I just lost the name. Do they have property that would be accessible for parking when you go just past the wet area? I know they're up in there.
Yeah, there probably would be accessible up in there. Yeah. There probably would be.
Okay, well, this is really this is if I can, it's kind of encouraging that we're at that end of the lake, because I know it's a real big deal for you guys and us as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to get too far into trying to solve the problem tonight, but are there other comments or questions from councilors? Councilor Gorham Matthews.
I know we're getting short on time. We still have lots else to do. So I just wanted to say that I'm certainly supportive of looking at this further. And I think we have a motion to go with this in the package that says that we'd investigate, have staff and such look at this further. So I think that's something we should do.
Okay, Councilor Woods, did you have any comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, in the best interest of time, I won't get too deep into it, but I'd just like to thank everybody from that association again. I know this would be a problem. I was extremely surprised that there was nowhere for any member of the general public to get on to the lake other than through the resort. I was even more surprised that the people that are water access didn't have a deeded access point anywhere. So yeah, I guess it's something we need to look at. As far as, you know, pushing an entranceway into the lake for people to get in, if there's an entranceway that we're putting into the lake, I don't think we should ever even consider putting a gate up to try and stop anybody. That's just me. I think that the lakes are there for everybody. We should definitely help these people out if we can, for parking and access into the lake. But yeah, I'll just leave it at that now. Say thank you very much.
Okay, so Councillor Gore Matthews alluded to a motion that had been suggested. And I'll read this to you and see if there's a mover and seconder. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives the petition dated July 28th, 2021 from Mr. Ken Black in regard to a request for a public access for a boat launch and parking to Lorimer Lake in the municipality of Whitestone. And that the matter be referred to staff for review and a written report back to council on the matter in respect to options and opportunities. Would someone like to move that?
I would move that. Councillor McEwen here.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Gore Matthews. The intent here would be that, and staff have already done a little bit of looking into this because of, you know, the various folks who have reached out to us about this over the past few months, to see what options there might be. But they would go and take a look at, research these a little bit more carefully and see if any of them make sense, and if there's anything that we can do to encourage parties to come together, parties being the new owners of the resort and or the municipality of McDougall, because they clearly have an interest in it as well, I would say. And then we could hear back at a subsequent meeting as to what the different possibilities are. And of course, if it involves opening a road allowance and so on, then we'd have to understand what's involved in doing that and so on. So that's kind of the intent of this motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Are you ready for the question? Are any opposed? Hearing none, I'll declare it carried. And thanks, folks, once again for bringing this to our attention. And I guess we can't make any promises at this point. We'll try to see what we can do to facilitate a solution.
Thank you. I did talk to Tim Hunt, the CAO of McDougall, and he was going to actually talk to Wes also at the resort to see what his plans were for that resort. He'd be the person that McDougall is assigned to look into that. So whoever the staff member from Whitestone is should maybe reach out to Tim Hunt and talk to him.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
if we could move on to, we have 5 planning items. Could I get a motion to go into committee of the whole to consider these planning items, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by,
I'll second. Councillor McEwen.
thank you. At 7:46 p.m. Any objection to that motion? Okay, thank you. We're in committee of the whole. And that simply allows us to talk about these without a motion on the table. And when we're finished, we can come back and consider any motions that come out of them. First one is a consent application from Rain Lieber. And what we'll do in each one of these is we'll ask John Jackson to just recap them briefly for us, and then we'll take questions. So John, if you want to go ahead with.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. This is an application. It's got a slightly peculiar backstory where prior to the incorporation or creation of Whitestone, a property owner by the name of Rain Lieber got a consent to create 3 lots on Dubois Lake. At that time, the province had the consent granting authority. And when the province found out that the 3 lots were not accessible by any road, they decided at the 11th hour that they would put a restriction on the 3 lots, and that was that whenever these lots were conveyed, they had to be conveyed as a bundle, so that the 3 lots essentially were one in that sense. But they granted the consent and then put this restriction on it, like a covenant, saying you couldn't sell them individually. So what Mr. Lieber did was that he has provided a access landing that's tied in, is proposed to be tied into these properties that will now give them water access where he has a community landing a little farther up the lake. So the way to, the quickest way, the simplest way to remove this covenant is to simply reapprove the 3 lots together with the right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. Questions? I guess I'll start with one, not be particularly familiar with the properties involved. I see in your table, there's the 3 parcels, there's a large parcel, a 450 meter frontage and 25 hectares. And then there's a 70 meter one and a 100 meter frontage and slightly under. What is our zoning? What does our zoning bylaw say is the frontage requirement for these?
Well, the current WF1 frontage is 90 meters. The sense in this case is that if the lots were created, they were created fundamentally in their configuration at the time, and so that the way that our zoning bylaw operates is that these would be recognized as the approved frontages if council supports the consent to really remove the covenant. So the large frontage is the mainland parcel, where the smaller ones are on a peninsula that, and they're all water access because the mainland parcel doesn't have access back up to the highway as well.
Can you point out where on this diagram these properties actually are? Because oh, I see them. All right, sorry. I see where they are.
There's a bit of peninsula and there's a little more history. At one time, Mr. Lieber was going to build a bridge across the Dubois Creek to get to the mainland parcels, but that never panned out as well either.
Okay. Well, other questions from councilors?
Mr. Mayor, my question was similar to yours on the length of the shoreline. I guess we're going by, as Mr. Jackson says, defined property size from previous to the formation of our municipality, I guess. I'm wondering why it wouldn't have been adjusted to correspond with today's standards. John, is that not something that would have been considered?
It's a fair question. I can only say that it should not have been approved by the province and then them overlay a covenant. So it's most peculiar in that sense. The lands are all surveyed, the parcels are defined, if you like. They have their own deeds. It's just that they have to be sold as long as this covenant applies as a single bundle. They are kind of 3 lots, but they're kind of not. If I could describe it that way, it's. I've seen the province do this in a couple of files that just didn't make any sense. So this is one of those examples.
We're not setting precedent going forward then, is what I could concern.
I couldn't believe that this would ever have happened anywhere else on the planet.
Okay, guess we can hold you to that. Thank you.
So I guess another question I would have is that because I don't really know this lake, like I've never been out on it or anything, but it looks from the map that you've provided as if there's a fair number of existing lots. And I can't tell if they have buildings on them or anything, but it's it's kind of like a widening of a creek, right, or a river. We don't have any information about what sort of that would relate to what the capacity of that lake is for development, do we?
It depends on how you measure it. I think that because it's warm water, it wouldn't have the kind of concerns, for example, that were talked about on Lorimer Lake. It's a tight little lake. It's a nice lake. Maybe if I could, Your Worship, lean on Brian. He knows I think he knows this neighborhood pretty well.
I was just gonna chime in there, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Oh, by all means.
I actually do know the lake very, very well. I've spent a lot of time on it. I did own a parcel right next to the deeded access lot for all these waterfront properties. I'm not 100% sure if anyone has developed any of the other parcels that you're talking about off the peninsula there. It's a really quiet lake, not a lot of traffic on it. Again, this is another one where there's no public access to it. The people that do access it would go through the trailer park. Used to be Lazy Acres. It's Evergreen Eco Trailer Park now.
Yeah.
But they do have a deeded access down part of, I'm pretty sure it's Evergreen Trail is what it's called, to a parking area. It's all been laid out. At that far end of the lake, there's next to nothing down there. There's no other real properties that I know of down there on either side of the lake that are developed. But it is a very quiet lake. It is, it's a little bit of a jaunt to get back in there to the parking area, but it's definitely doable. That's about all I could tell you, I think. The Dubois Creek section there, that goes back into the Taylor Creek over into Taylor Lake.
Mm-hmm. Well, does anyone have any concerns about permitting this to go ahead?
We've got, Your Worship, through you, we've got no feedback from the circulation to neighboring properties.
And But did it include the people at the sort of the Highway 520 end of the
Probably not.
of the lake?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, once again.
Yes, go
interrupt
ahead.
For a second. From the people that I know on the lake, and I do know quite a few of them, the actual, the private road section of the Bois Trail, it went through the property that I used to own. There wasn't any real complaints from anybody, the cottagers there that talked to me about it anyways. And I do talk to quite a few people on that lake.
So but you think they know about this, eh? That this,
Oh, everybody knows about it. I had a lot of people coming and contacting me, the cottagers that already have properties in off the Bois Trail and Cabin Road and whatnot, and asking how much the properties were worth and who to contact to try and buy them. And that would have been a few years ago now. So there was people, even the people down in like the Bay Area around the trailer park, that were interested in trying to purchase some of those properties.
okay, well, I don't want to prolong this. Are there any other comments or questions? When we come out, there'll be a motion to approve what our planner is recommending, so. If there's nothing more on this one, can we move to item 8.2, Daniel Mayo consent application?
This is an application to create a new lot on the Bunny Trail. And it is located right adjacent to the Shawnigan River and between Stibler's Road. It's been designed to meet the minimum requirements for a new rural lot on the Bunny Trail. There were a couple of calls from neighbors with respect to this application, but they didn't state any specific objection to it.
So they were just looking for information?
Well, there's some historical road items that come up at this location, and it was more about the status of an old road that apparently crossed. There was a bridge structure that crossed the Shawnigan River. I don't know if anyone's old enough amongst us to recall that, but the structure is no longer there, and I believe either the local roads board or maybe even early Whitestone days, they asked that it be removed because they didn't want to maintain it. So I didn't get the sense that it was particularly relevant to the consent that is being proposed by Mr. Mayo.
Okay, questions?
Mr. Jackson, I had a call from someone who got my name, I guess, through being notified. And he asked if it was waterfront property. I believe it was down to the river somehow. Would it be deemed waterfront property?
No, we treat it as rural.
Just rural?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that the rationale there is at that particular point, the Shawnigan Creek's not truly very navigable or considered a recreation water body.
Yeah, that was my thought too, exactly. So I'm familiar with that a little bit right there. I figured it would be totally dry in the summer, for instance. But, okay.
Is that where we had the huge washout back in the Bunny Trail back in what was it, 2015, 2014?
I think
No, I believe. Okay, sorry.
I think it was North Joe, if I'm not mistaken, of that point.
I think so. That's what I was gonna say, Mr. Mayor, it's north of there. We had an issue here with someone piling boulders and damming up the lake a bit at one time, somewhere in that vicinity, but that could even be upstream more.
So does anyone have any concerns, questions or concerns about the specific recommendations?
I'm good.
Mr. Mayor, I do have my hand up. I'm wondering if this is suitable for a public question. I've had my hand up for a moment. It's actually the application before this. I just don't know the correct protocol.
Well, if it's a specific question regarding the application, I guess you can ask it, sure.
My question would be that I'm interested in the severance of water access lots to know whether council and planning considers whether the deeded access to access those lots, if there is consideration whether there's adequate room for parking for those additional lots. It occurs to me that we are running into many water access parking issues up in our neck of the wood. And I'm wondering if that's part of the planning process. And the second part of that is, if it is, how many spots do water access lots typically get provided for? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I guess you could certainly relate it to the previous application. Mr. Jackson, do you have a comment?
I think in this case, the deeded access property is quite large, and our regulations, which probably need to be reviewed. I think we talk about 100 square meters per each water access lot served, which is about 1,200 square feet. So is that enough? That's what we have in our regulations. Generally speaking, a reasonable expectation would be to have enough area for a car, a trailer, and maybe a second car. So in this case, there is adequate. It's quite a large piece of property. Now, it's not improved substantially, and it won't be, I assume, until the lots get sold and the new owners start to use the properties.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So again, back to the one that is between on the Buddy Trail between Boakview and Silvers Road. Are there any further questions or comments about that one? Anybody have any reservations?
No.
If not, let's go to number 3, which is MJ Development. And this one is on the South Mag. Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, just put the file up here. Your worship, Mr. Jansen has a holding down the Mag River, and he assembled additional land that was kind of a bite mark out of his property. So he's taking these 2 parcels and he's reconfiguring them with 5 parcels, and they would all meet our minimum standards. Oddly enough, council will recall a number of years ago, Mr. Jensen had severed some previous lots around the corner. And so he's continued his development aspirations in this area. Now, this is a remote part of Whitestone. The only way you get to it is to go up to Harris Lake Marina, which is an unincorporated area north of Point of Barrel along the 400 highway, or maybe it's still Highway 69 at that location. And you come about 8 kilometers down the river to this property. We've investigated the service of the marina as an access facility, and they don't seem to believe they've got a problem accommodating additional lots for boat access. And I'm not sure what more you could offer up at this particular location for, I'm going to call it designated access, but you know, it sort of depends from water body to water body. I know the Lorimer Lake people are having a very serious issue, obviously, if they lose the marina. There's no reason to believe this wouldn't have an equally servicing issue, although that marina has some longevity in terms of its existence, and it's the only one that services this portion of the lower mag. But the applicant has said he's got interested parties in purchasing these lots. They don't have any serious constraints to development, so it's up to council to offer any views on any issues they might see.
So just as a follow-up to your comment, John, why would we not require them to have their water access properties? Why would we not require them to have deeded access points that contain the necessary docking and parking and docking? I don't see that in your.
Well, no,
I don't think I saw that in your recommendation.
no, it wasn't in the recommendation because it's one of those cases where the policy as written is, are you satisfied that access is appropriate? So it's your call. We have obviously allowed consents to take place in this with the marina as the designated access provider. So if you felt that that isn't satisfactory, that's council's call.
Okay,
Just as an analogy, let's say I did an island on Lake Muskoka. One of their conditions is that I get a letter from a local marina confirming that they're able to provide long-term access to the new lot created on the island. They don't require a deeded access, and that's because of that context. In the context of Awashkesh, we know, for example, that you've got a real problem at the peak periods during the season. So the satisfaction criteria is that you have a deeded location to park. So it varies from lake to lake. It's essentially a council's call.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions from other councilors?
Just a comment again on the parking one. I'm quite familiar with Harris Lake, where they go to the Harris Lake Marina, which is the sole marina for probably nearly a couple hundred cottages, either on Harris Lake or up in the South Mag, and then all the way up to this location. So it's a pretty big established organization there for that whole lake system. So it's pretty they run into any kind of issues with a few more parking spots in that particular location. So I'm okay with it, thanks.
Other comments? Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Please.
I'm leaning more towards your comment that you had there. I mean, this is a water access property. We heard earlier about the problems that the people on Lorimer Lake are having with their water access properties. I don't know, to me, that's a bit of an issue. To go from Harris Lake, it's a private business. What happens if one day an investment company decided to buy that and, you know, charge people too much money, and then people have a harder time getting to these water access properties? That's my main concern.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Gorman Matthews, any comments?
Yeah, I guess my concern would be what our liability would be in terms of all these properties that we, you know, by granting them permission to become lots and creating them, what is our obligation to, in the future, as we see with some of the other lakes coming back to us, wanting parking, wanting access to the lake. You know, this is a long ways out for us to come around to do something in terms of a parking lot or something. So yeah, I guess that's my only concern, is what our obligation is in legal aspects of granting water access properties without having deeded access somewhere.
Okay. If there's nothing further,
Mr. Mayor, it's Scott Nash. Would I be allowed to ask a couple questions in regards to this application?
yes, I guess so. Scott, go ahead.
Okay. It's just a couple things. When I was reviewing the paperwork today, I guess I have 3 questions or comments, and hopefully somebody can answer them. First off, I noticed in the conclusion that it just says payment of Parkland fees. And I know that has been brought up in the past, and I know I've raised the question in the past as to why sometimes it says 5% Parkland fees, other times it says to council satisfaction. And in this case, it simply says Parkland fees. I think it's very well written in the official plan what it should be, and we'll just ask the question as to why it doesn't say 5% Parkland fees. Just before I ask my second question, I don't have any issues in the sense of this gentleman doing his severances. It's more just making sure everything's equal for everybody. My second question would be that of, which has been talked about a bit here tonight, the deeded access and the use of Harris Lake Marina. And I can speak from personal experience how water access lots can become a very big problem when trying to use a public boat launch or a, in this case, Harris Lake Marina. And I wonder why there wouldn't be that requirement for deeded access. And I know in your official plan it says exclusively for the access. And I know that on a couple of your lakes, Lorimer Lake in particular, is having issues with access now. So I guess would like to know the answer as to why deeded access wouldn't be required here, but is required on other applications. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And my final question would be, I noticed that this area along the Magnetawan River or Harris Lake is right at the boundaries of the provincial park. I think it actually runs through it, except for this property. And I guess my question to that would be, why in the reports I don't see anything that talks about if the fish habitat has been reviewed for type 1 fish habitat and making sure it's okay because of fish habitat, and if a species at risk evaluation has been done on the property or not. And again, I'm just asking these questions to make sure that every application is treated equally when it gets presented in front of everybody. So if anybody has answers to those 3 questions, would be fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think this probably falls to John Jackson. The first question I hope is easy for you to answer regarding Parkland fees.
Yeah, certainly, Your Worship. The Parkland fees are actually consistently applied as a 5% of the assessed value, and that's in the fee bylaw. So just a notation of that is all that's necessary in my view, but that's what is applied to applications for new lots, regardless of their location in the municipality. Again, the water access issue is not it's not consistently applied, but those that are familiar with the marina with the kind of I'll call it mass, for lack of a better word, so that the inertia there is likely that it's going to be there for some time. I'm not so sure there's a liability issue that Councillor Gorman had suggested, but you know, if we were concerned about it, we could ask that we register something on the properties. And again, it's, you know, it's up to council. If you feel that there's a peril exposing council with respect to a similar issue to the Lorimer Lake problem, it's your prerogative, because the language of the policy is very, I'll call it flexible, because it all talks about council satisfaction. In terms of the potential natural heritage features, we did screen this a couple of times. Very clean property, very clean frontage. If you look at the Magnetawan River Park, this is really just a little chunk of it, of the Magnetawan River that's not crown land. It's patented, so it's not part of the park. And so you're not going to see much more in the way of additional development, because of that sweeping park covers the balance of all the crown shoreline down to the outlet.
Okay, well, thank you. I believe those questions are answered. Anything further about this one?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead,
I'm hearing,
Councillor
I've
McKinnon.
heard several comments here about the parking. Should we ask that there be some waiver or whatever, putting responsibility on the new purchasers of the property or on the developer of the property? Is that insurmountable, Mr. Jackson, to cover
No.
ourselves some way from a?
Not at all. We could place a condition that the new lot owners recognize that the municipality is not responsible for parking or liable for providing any landing location for these lots. That can be pretty readily. Or if you want to go farther than that, it's to your satisfaction that the applicants secure a mainland property deeded to the creation of these lots. It's again, your prerogative.
Okay, thank you. Somebody and I
comment, I would be.
Go ahead, Councillor McKinnon.
Further to that comment, I'd be happy with some kind of rider on this versus forcing a parking area, knowing the nature of that marina, which is very extensive. And if these people are in trouble, wow, there is a lot of people in trouble. Like, I know there were 161 offshore lots that were serviced by hydro at one point in time. There was a heck of a lot of people involved. So it has to be a very lasting and cooperative. It'd be a complete purchase by the organization of cottagers or somebody if there ever was a parking issue. So I don't think I have a concern personally about the parking part of it at the shoreline.
Okay, thank you. One of our recent speakers has a microphone still open. If you wouldn't mind muting it, please. We're picking up some background noise. We'll go on to item 8.4, which happens to be a consent application from me. John Jackson, do you want to introduce this one, please?
Certainly. This application essentially provides road access to some historical lots that were created as water access, which generally speaking is more a housekeeping kind of thing that makes things better for all. It would allow for a registered entitlement off of private road off of Wawashkesh to I believe 6 of 7 lots in a historic plan of subdivision. There truly aren't any planning issues. My sense is that the access for some of the lots has already occurred over the years to some of these lots. The access is over 2 separate parcels owned by the Comries to 6 lots, 2 of which are also owned by Mr. and Mrs. Comrie. Fundamentally, it's purely a technical, I'm going to call it better planning arrangement for these former water access lots. I don't know if there's any questions with respect to any of the details, but we see this as one of the more simple applications we get.
Are there any questions from council?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, it's Scott Nash again. I'd like to ask one question in regards to this. It's a pretty brief and quick question.
Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, perfect. So I think it's great to take access, because I know access is so congested at Lake Wawashkesh at times. I think it's great to give road access to some more lots. So I think it's a good initiative and idea. I guess my only question to that would be, if this is granted, would it be possible, or should council think of doing what we were required to do on a recent application, BO2 2018, and provide a consent agreement or a 5126 agreement that once the owners know that there's road access, that they'll sign a document to say that they understand they are not allowed to park overnight themselves or their guests at the public landing, like you guys have enforced on other recent applicants over the last couple of years. Again, just trying to keep all applications the same. But again, I do think it's a great opportunity to have less access at the Indian Narrows or wherever it would. But I'm sure those residents that have road access would probably be more than happy to sign an agreement of sort. But I didn't know what the comments from council would be, or the planner, in regards to that.
Well, the situation is a little bit apart from creating new lots that wish to have access via a private registered right-of-way. These were lots that were created back in the days before the municipality as water access lots. So the lots themselves are created. They're lots in the plan of subdivision. So that makes it distinct and apart from creating a new lot over which you would have certain attendant conditions like waiving liability and as such. So I don't see that being apples and apples to what Mr. Nash is discussing. So I see it more of a we're actually taking water access lots and making them better by having a formal registered road servicing them.
Maybe I can clarify the concern for you. the driveway in question already exists. And the folks who would benefit from these consents are already using it under a license, which gives them no right in title, right? The only difference between the current situation and the one that we would hope exists after this is these consents are approved and registered is that they would then have an actual right in title to use and their successors in in title to the property. People who would own those properties in the future would similarly have this they would similarly have those rights. They would inherit them. It's analogous to a condominium. If you think of a condominium corporation, if you own shares in the condominium corporation, then you have rights to the common areas. Well, this is like a road corporation, so that's how it works. And the folks involved are not. There is no way they're going to use a public landing. They already have parking and so on their own properties.
Okay, no, thank you very much. I thought therefore it would be easy to implement something like that. But I guess the bigger question is, I thought you'd excused yourself from commenting on this topic since you own the land. But I guess I'll leave that up to the other councilors to discuss afterwards.
I felt the necessity to answer your question. I'm sorry, but because it
you
doesn't
had
apply in
excused
this
yourself.
case.
Okay.
As Mr. Jackson tried to explain to you.
Mr. Mayor, you did excuse yourself initially, and we kind of let you get dragged into it.
I'm sorry, I should have just left it go, but anyway. No, I want everybody to know what the real situation is. Okay. Is there anything further to this one, or can we move on to the next one? One more. This is the Stankus potential purchase of a closed municipal road allowance. And once again, Mr. Jackson.
Yes, this is a property where the owners adjacent to an unopened road allowance off Farley's Road wanted to acquire this road allowance in front of their property, which fundamentally is a non-waterfront property, and the acquisition of the road allowance fronting their property would transform it actually into a waterfront property. When it was examined, one of the things that we very consistently apply is the notion that we would not want to stop up and sell any public lands that would lead to water. And in this case, we had looked at selling a portion of the road allowance to the adjoining owners, the Stankus, if it in fact did not jeopardize or conflict with that policy. So when I looked at it, I came up with the idea that the whole road allowance shouldn't be sold, but a portion that wouldn't prejudice or limit the road allowance to function as a future or an existing public access not be impacted adversely. And so I said there's a limited amount of shoreline that could be acquired that would in fact affect that protection for the public's use of the road allowance. I guessed at a number, and then when I guessed, a couple of councillors said maybe it's wise to actually go and measure what the amount of that road allowance might be available to the Stankus. And I did, took a tape measure up, and I got 33 meters. That takes it kind of to the edge of where they use the road allowance for their docking and beach area. And I don't believe the sale of that 33 meters would compromise the public's use of the road allowance or the policy that protects that. So That was my mission, and that's my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Questions from councillors?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could, Councillor
Go
Woods.
ahead, Councillor Woods.
So I took the opportunity and I went down and met the Stankuses, really nice people. Walked around the property and checked things out, and listened to what they had to say, and I do kind of feel for them. But I have one question. Part 15 on the one diagram, 52 of page 100. Do the Stankuses have deeded access to use that part 15? Can anybody give me an answer to that?
Through your worship, I believe they do, because
They do.
it's not a waterfront lot. So all the non-waterfront lots in that area, most of which are not developed, all have a right to access the lake through Part 15, which is a 66-foot strip of land along the west boundary of the Stankus property.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good access point. I think I walked up and down that section. It's pretty flat, and basically you push some trees out of the way there, and you can get right to the lake from what I saw. So the Stankus's property now, is it charged waterfront as far as impact assessment? Do they pay waterfront taxes or just regular, like a backlot kind of residential lot?
I doubt that it is, because any survey wouldn't show it touching the water, but I think that might be a staff question of either Michelle or Paula, but I don't believe so. It would be my understanding of how MPAC operates.
Okay. So we gave the Stankuses the right to put a dock out, and it's quite a nice setup, I think, that they have. There's quite like a gangway walkway out. I would call it almost like looking like a pier, and then a nice floating dock off the end there. My question is, if they had deeded access for Part 15, when they came to ask us if they could put the dock in there, why would we let them put it where we did? And why wouldn't we ask them to put it either closer to Part 15 or on Part 15?
I would speculate, your worship, but just to qualify it, remember there's probably 8 or 10 or even a dozen lots that would have the right to, once they're built upon and used, I suppose, to go down that common area for the backlots, which would conflict, I think, with the kind of objects that I would suggest the Stankus have achieved by having their own facility right in front of their property. So I think it's just a logical kind of request that they made, which was a number of years ago when they asked to have a dock easement in front of the concession allowance.
Okay. Now, if council did approve that they could purchase this small section of the waterfront here, the balance of the page 52 of 100 that's colored in yellow, could they come back at a later date, you know, maybe 10 years down the road kind of thing, different council, and ask to try and buy the rest of that?
The simple answer is, so I can, through you, your worship, they could. The policy, though, is written such that we only consider closing road allowances that lead to water that can't function that way. And I would submit to you that today, the balance of that road allowance can function as an access. And 10 years from now, it'll still have that functionality. So I don't think that will change.
Okay, one more quick one. Sorry for being a pain here, but part 10 next to the Stankus's property. If we do this and we sold this to the Stankus's, just this small portion, could we not be setting some sort of precedent for the people next to them to ask to buy the same amount on the shoreline?
I don't believe that it would be a precedence, because the Stankuses have a weird situation where the actual, the depth of the shore road allowance that I'm saying is that can be made available, the 33, 33 meters, almost disappears. It's just a very sliver. Whereas the property in front of the next door neighbor is all completely the full 20 meters of the road allowance leading to water. So again, it wouldn't be, it's not a good comparison in this context.
Okay, thanks, John.
If I may, Councillor Woods, Part 10 actually has access to the water because it continues on the other side of that that road allowance. If you follow Farley's Road along a little farther, you'll see where their driveway is, that they can go down. They can go further down, right, to the lake. So they're not. Anyway, I don't see that as coming up as an issue in the future. Any other comments about number 8.5 or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a quick one. I did visit Stankus also, and I know we initially looked at, say, 60 or some odd feet, and when I was there with them, and I had to bring it over 60 feet, it would hardly take it to the dock and beyond. The 100 feet or 3 meters that Mr. Jackson's talking about, it actually lines up with the side of their house, which comes down. So it gives them a front yard, if you will, which is their own to the water's edge for a greater distance across, and not interfering with the access to the lake by way of that road allowance, I think was the key to me in the whole thing. So I'm glad Mr. Jackson measured it properly and assure us that we're not encumbering the access to the road on that allowance, which is by policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? If not, can I get a
If I
motion?
could just clarify,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Gore Matthews.
that's okay. So by selling this little portion, this will convert this property to waterfront. They'll be paying waterfront taxes then on it.
If I could enter that discussion, Your Worship, I believe it will. It will change them from a back lot to a functional waterfront lot. And
Yeah, because when we visited there, it was kind of mind-boggling that this wasn't already considered a waterfront lot. Like, it's completely manicured right to the lake with a dock and a beach and buildings right up to the water. So, I think anybody else that's already paying waterfront property tax would probably be, a little flabbergasted that one of their neighbors is paying backlot taxes on this property with all the benefits of being on the water. From looking at it. So as long as it's switching categories, I'm good with selling that small portion.
I think eventually equity will prevail. Impact tends to be a little bit behind, but you'll find that it'll be fair and reasonable over time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, can I get a motion to reconvene into regular council meeting?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods, seconded by,
I'll second.
Second, Councilor McEwen.
okay, I got Councillor Gore Matthews, I heard first, so anyone opposed? If not, we are back in regular session. So now matters arising from committee of the whole, if we can go back through them very quickly, well, not very quickly, but We have some motions. The first one is with respect going back to the Lieber property. And this one, I'll read the suggested motion and see if we can get a mover and seconder. Whereas John Jackson Planner Inc. has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B31/2021 Whitestone dash, and it's 998053 Ontario Inc. Is the applicant, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone recommends the consent application for approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, payment of a parkland dedication fee in accordance with the municipal fees and charges bylaw. 2, receiving 911 addressing for the 3 new lots. And 3, for the 3 lots, and 3, payment of any applicable planning fees. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? If so, I will ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. 8.2, which is the applicant is 2586720 Ontario Limited, Mr. Mayo. Whereas John Jackson Planner Inc. has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B32/2021 Whitestone, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone recommends the consent application for approval, subject to the following conditions. Payment of a parkland dedication fee in accordance with the municipal fees and charges bylaw. That's number 1. Number 2, receiving 911 addressing for the new lot. And 3, payment of any applicable planning fees. Any discussion? Okay, are you ready for the question?
I will so move, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Thank you. Councillor McEwen moves, seconded by?
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Can you call the roll, Madam Clerk, please?
I will. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes,
That motion is carried.
thank you. All right, 8.3. And, oh, sorry. What did I just do here? Oh, all right. Apologies, I grabbed the wrong paper. 8.3. This is MJ Development Inc., Jensen It's the applicant. Whereas John Jackson Planner Inc. has prepared a report for the Parry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B35, 2021 Whitestone, and provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone recommends the consent application for approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the severed and retained lots be rezoned to allow for the proposed frontages and areas. 2, payment of a parkland dedication fee in accordance with the municipal fees and charges bylaw. 3, receiving 911 addressing for the new 4 lots. And 4, payment of any applicable planning fees. Is there a mover and seconder?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, seconded by,
I'll
Councillor
second.
John.
okay, I got Councillor Gorham Matthews. Now, this particular one is the one in which there was a thought that there might be some, something specific about parking and access added as a condition. Does anyone wish to add a condition to the 4 that I've already read?
I think we
Mr.
should.
Mayor, if I could.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I also do. Condition that the owners be responsible for parking or some such wording.
Mr. Jackson, would you have a suggestion as to a wording that you think would?
Yes, the proper thing to do in terms of form would be to add a condition that would state that the applicant enter into a 5126 agreement.
Okay, thank you. I'm
The applicant
just going to
enter into
capture this. Hang on, that the applicant enter
into a section 5126 consent agreement to recognize that the properties created by consent will be responsible for obtaining access facilities and will not.
Okay, sorry, just hang on a sec before I get it. I've got enter into a section 5126 consent agreement to the effect that the applicant is sorry, that no, not the applicant, sorry.
The owners of the severed lots.
Owners of the, yeah, okay, thank you, that's right. Owners of the severed
The owners
lots.
of the severed lots be responsible for access facilities. Be responsible for access facilities to the properties, access facilities to the properties, and they will indemnify, fancy word, indemnify,
Yep,
indemnify the municipality.
okay, thank you. Municipality.
For any access responsibilities.
Okay, I got it. And I'll read it back to you. Make sure the movers and seconder are okay with it. These are the conditions. This is condition 5, that the applicant enter into a section 51 8.26 consent agreement to the effect that the owners of the severed lots be responsible for access facilities to the properties and will indemnify the municipality for any access responsibilities. Are you mover and seconder okay with that, adding that condition?
I'm good with that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gorman Matthews? Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Any further discussion about this motion? All right, if not, Madam CAO.
Thank you. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen, you're on mute.
You're muted,
Councillor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen. Or you can raise your hand.
Sorry. Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Thank you. 8.4. And I'll read the motion. Whereas John Jackson Planner Inc. has prepared a report for the Perry Sound Area Planning Board regarding consent application B36/2021. That's the Comrie Family Trust, et cetera, are the applicants. And provided a copy to the municipality of Whitestone. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives this report as information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone recommends this consent application for approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, affected lots to receive appropriate 911 addressing for a road access property. And 2, payment of any applicable planning fees. Is there a mover and seconder?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Wood, seconded by is that Councillor McEwen? Did I see? I can't actually hear Councillor McEwen.
Okay, how about now? They're located. I have a very sensitive connection tonight for some reason. Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can make you out now. Thank you. You're seconding?
I'll second.
I think we've lost him entirely, but okay. I'll take Councillor Gorman Matthews then. Is there any further
I
discussion?
keep
Councillor McEwen is not muted, but we can't hear him. Your video's turned off, so that you should. I think he's apologized, everybody. I think he's going to try to call back in.
Mayor, I relocated hoping to get a little bit better access. You hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry,
Your image is
Very poor
frozen.
connection tonight.
Yeah.
Did you want me to, did you want me to carry on with 8.4? I've missed the last 10 minutes, so I'm sure we're.
Well, it's okay. We stopped when we lost you there. Councillor Woods moved the motion and Councillor Gorham Matthews seconded it. So I'm just asking if there's any further discussion before we call the question.
Okay, fine. Yeah, great.
If there's no further, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen, Councillor McEwen,
We've lost him again.
Bye.
There he is.
Very touchy.
Councillor McEwen,
He's gone again.
Yeah, I guess moving to another location didn't solve the problem.
Maybe we should text him just to phone in.
I will give him a phone
Oh, he's
call.
trying to come back.
There he is. There he
He's
is.
coming back one more time, so let's see.
Might be the weather. I know my internet's horrible tonight too.
Yeah, I suspect that's what's making it worse.
Councillor McEwen, okay. Councillor
I'll
McEwen,
see if audio holds.
Go ahead, Councillor McEwen.
Okay.
could we ask you to perhaps phone in,
Sure.
Councillor McEwen? We're not hearing you clearly.
Okay, phoning in.
Thank you.
Madam CAO, I wonder if he knows the number to call.
Am I on the line now?
You, Councillor McEwen, you need to turn off the microphone on your computer. That's what's echoing, I think.
Okay, is that better?
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry about that.
Well,
First time I've lost connection on this thing. So we'll go back. Audio. Where am I at?
Thank you. We are calling the question on the Comrie Family Trust matter. I'll start over. Councillor Laura Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie has declared an conflict of interest and is not voting on this matter. This motion is carried.
thank you very much. And 8.5. This is the Stankus the sale of the road allowance. Whereas an application has been submitted by Ray and Caroline Stankus for the closing and acquisition of the municipal road allowance between concessions 10 and 11 in part of lot 29, adjacent to part 9 of Plan 42R6829 in the geographic township of Hagerman. And whereas John Jackson Planner Inc. has prepared and provided a report dated April 26, 2021, and a supplemental email dated August 30th, 2021 for the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone. And whereas the municipality does not wish to conflict with its policy to preserve road allowances leading to water, whereas a portion of the requested road allowance may be stopped up and transferred to Ray and Caroline Stankus without compromising the municipality's policy. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approves the acquisition and closing of 33 meters as shown in red on the attached sketch dated August 30th, 2021 from the southwest corner of concessions 10 and 11 in part of lot 29 adjacent to part 9 of Plan 42R6829 in the geographic township of Hagerman, now the municipality of Whitestone, district of Parry Sound, by Ray and Caroline Stankus, subject to the following. That 1, that practices, policies, and procedures of the municipality for closing of municipal road allowances be followed. 2, that only the portion of the road allowance within the above referenced 33 meters above the high water mark for Whitestone Lake be stopped up and transferred. 3, that the municipal appraiser of record determine the value of the road allowance land requested to be purchased, and that payment of all associated costs and fees be the responsibility of Ray and Caroline Stankus. Is there a mover and seconder for this motion?
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
I'll make-
Councilor McEwen.
Councillor McEwen moves, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Is there any further discussion? If not, could you call the roll, please? Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
No.
Mayor Comrie,
Yes.
thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Oh.
so.
Thank you very much. That concludes our planning items. The next item is the consent agenda, which consists of the regular council minutes for the meeting on September 7th, and the Environmental Stewardship Committee meeting minutes of August 4th, 2021, to be amended as noted below. And if you don't have it in front of you, the amendments are under minutes section 5.5. It says Whitestone Conservation Association had a volunteer inspection program. Dennis will provide the information to the subcommittee members. The materials were available through our public library. And what that should read is Whitestone Conservation Association organized a voluntary septic inspection program on Whitestone Lake. Dennis Morrison, I'm assuming, will provide the report to the subcommittee members. Property owners can still obtain septic dye kits available through the public library. So, and then there is the third item is the unfinished business listed on page 4 of the agenda. So, the motion I'm looking for, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives and or approves the items contained in the consent agenda dated September 21st, 2021. Can you get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move, Councilor
I'll
McEwen.
move.
I heard Councillor McEwen and Councillor Gorm Matthews as the seconder, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about these? Okay, is anyone opposed to this motion? All right, thank you. That's carried. And there are no, I assume there are no matters arising from the consent agenda. Okay, thank you. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approve accounts payable in the amount of $133,952.85 and payroll in the amount of $32,000.19 for payment.
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by?
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Any discussion about payables?
Mr. Mayor, I have one if I could.
Go ahead, please.
Page 70 of 100. It is payment number 36150. Perry Sound Auto Parts for a lawnmower. $9,158.65. So I was told by a couple of the staff members that we had purchased a new Cub Cadet zero-turn lawnmower, and that's what this was for. The only question that I had was, did we just go straight to Perry Sound Auto Parts for a Cub Cadet? I know I've bought a lot of stuff at Perry Sound Auto Parts, but they don't service anything. And I was just wondering why we would go to Perry Sound Auto Parts to purchase something like that when we have a Cub Cadet dealer right here in town with TXM Motorsports, and they also service the equipment. Did we contact them and at least get a price, or did we just go straight to Perry Sound Auto Parts for the machine?
Madam CAO, can you respond to that question?
I will have to speak with the Public Works Manager on that item and get back to council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the payables? If not, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councillor Gore Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes,
Thank you. That motion is carried.
thank you. Okay, next we have a couple of bylaws. So the first one is a bylaw to enter into an agreement with IntelliVote Systems, Inc. for telephone and internet voting and vote by mail. It would be in the next municipal election in October of 2022. Can I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw 39-2021 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with IntelliVote Systems, Inc. for telephone/internet voting and vote by mail be read a first and second time this 21st day of September 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 21st day of September 2021 and numbered bylaw 39-2021. Mover and seconder?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Seconded by?
I'll second.
I'll second. Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Gore Matthews, I have.
You guys
there
are
any-
almost like synchronized swimmers.
Yes, kind of. Is there?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion or any questions of the clerk about this? I assume you all understand what it is.
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. I guess it's staying in line and following the same practice we did last time around for the election. Is that correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes,
Yes.
Councillor, that is correct. It's the same company we utilized last year. And I'm just getting ahead of the curve on a number of election-related issues. This one being the first, and you'll see a few more before the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, is anyone opposed to this motion?
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll declare it carried. Thank you. The next bylaw is a bylaw to close and stop up part of a shore road allowance in what's on Bulger Lake. Applicant is Kirby. Whereas bylaw 40-2021 being a bylaw to close and stop up that part of the original shore road allowance along the shores of Bulger Lake in front of lot 19, concession 6 in the geographic township of Burton, now municipality of Whitestone, has been given a first and second reading with no amendments this 21st day of September 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that bylaw 40-2021 be given a third and final reading and enacted as of the 21st day of September 2021. Who would like to move that, please?
I'll move, Councillor Woods.
Okay.
I heard Councillor Woods and Councillor McEwen.
Yes,
Is that
I'll
is the
second.
mover and seconder? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about this motion? Okay, I will ask the CAO clerk to call the roll, please, for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Thank you. Okay, staff reports, number 13. We don't, the agenda shows that we don't have any. However, Michelle wanted to, our CAO clerk wanted to give us advice about a vaccine bus that is coming our way on Saturday. Michelle, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just some information I found out today. The health unit is bringing in a mobile vaccine bus. You may have seen them. I've seen them in a few other municipalities. They'll be in Perry Sound on Saturday early afternoon, and they'll be coming and stopping in Whitestone for an hour at the municipal parking lot between 4:15 and 5:15. And we'll be advertising this on Facebook a number of times, on our website, and on Twitter. So spread the word. I'm hoping that it's going to be on Moose FM as well. And it's for first and second vaccinations. If you know anyone that hasn't made it to one of the other clinics, this is an opportunity to stop by the municipal office parking lot, and health unit folks are happy to help. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, that date again, the day?
It is this Saturday, which will be the 25th.
25th, yes.
25, 4:15 to 5:15. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I believe that's it for that section. And that brings us to correspondence. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items as listed on page 5 of the September 21st Council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that Council receives the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion or action. Looking at your list of correspondence, are there any there that you wish to pull out? We have already dealt with item number G, the petition. Are there any other ones? If not, could I get a mover and seconder for?
I will move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen, seconded by?
I'll second
second.
Councilor Woods.
All right, Councilor Woods. Any objection to passing this motion, this resolution? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Number 16, councilor items. Councilor Gore Matthews.
Yeah, I just have two quick ones. Just as our rep on the Chamber of Commerce, I just want to let everyone know of an event that's happening on Friday evening on the Island Queen. It's the annual Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards. So it's just an evening of networking, and they'll have some awards that people have been voting on for various businesses and categories in the area. So if anyone's interested in attending that, there are still tickets that you can buy online available for those awards and that night out. And the other item I just wanted to mention was that with regards to the minutes everyone had received from the environmental committee, there had been mention of a grant that we applied for through, there's a link that Michelle actually had sent me for for invasive species that was doing a grant, and we applied and we got a grant to purchase the toolkit that we had mentioned in the minutes. So we did get that grant, and we'll be finalizing how to get that and how to run that program later on once we have everything in place. So I just wanted to share that information with everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other items?
Well, I'm fine, Mr. Mayor.
I have two I'll mention just very quickly. First one is that the Recreation Committee, in cooperation with the Fire Department, is organizing a Halloween event for families with kids. And the plan will be, and this was done last year, I believe. The plan is to have families drive down by the fire hall, and they will have some candies to hand out, for the trick-or-treaters. And if it rains, they'll do it inside the Dundome, but it'll be just sort of going down to the parking lot and getting something in their loot bags and coming back out again. So that's the plan. That's what's being organized. The second thing I would draw to your attention is that today the Ministry of Natural Resources in Parry Sound issued a so-called flood outlook, which is in reference to the rain that is expected to continue for the balance of this week. It's not that people are expecting their houses to be flooded or anything like that. That's the sort of mildest version of, it's not a flood warning or an evacuation order or any of those more serious things. It's just expect water levels in the system to go up a little bit, and be careful around the shore. But that notice, you'll hear it on the radio, and that notice will be, I guess, probably, I think we put them up on when we get them, we put them up on our website and Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken. Perhaps CAO can confirm that, but
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that it has been posted on our Facebook page as of a few hours ago.
so we get these whenever there is a significant amount of rain forecast, which is this week. So anything else under councillor items? Are there any questions from the public? I see a couple of folks have stayed with us to the better end. Thank you very much.
I have a question, actually. Sue Jennings.
Susan, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. With respect to the Stankos lot, I'm across the bay from them. So I've watched them alter that shoreline and progress that into a waterfront. Basically, they've enjoyed waterfront without paying for waterfront. So I don't have a problem with the sale of the road allowance, but it is a kind of a unique situation because normally if you were going to, if it was a situation like on Bolger where you would sell somebody the shore road allowance, it would be a nominal amount. And they're already waterfront, essentially. But with this property, they are not waterfront. And I know that it's been answered that they will indeed get changed to waterfront. But my concern is that the sale of that road allowance will make the value of their property skyrocket. And I'm just wondering, as a municipality, what we're charging for that. It's 112 feet, I think, because that should be a pricey chunk. And I'm not saying there's not some allowance there to bring it down a bit, but in the market right now that we're looking at, that would basically change the value. Like right now, that that property has not, it's a little behind. It hasn't changed to a residential property. It's still classed as vacant. And when it goes to waterfront one, I would estimate that property would be worth $1.5 million. So I'm wondering what we're going to charge for that road allowance. Who's valuing that?
Opens up
Okay,
huge
good
question.
question. Can I? Well, Mr. Jackson is gone. Michelle, can you?
Yeah, I can
Answer?
step in here. Thank you. The municipality has an appraiser of record, someone that they use to appraise properties on a regular basis. And the municipality will receive an appraisal amount on that chunk of property.
And does the public get to know that appraised amount?
That's a good question. I'd have to check. I'm thinking they do because the sale and the information becomes public anyway.
Okay.
You can get that information at the land registry office, but yes, I've just never been asked that question before.
Well, it's an unusual situation, and it's, you know, I just don't want to see, I mean, it's a pretty good deal over there, and I think it has to be fair market value given that unique situation, and I just want to know what role does council have, and does council approve the fair market value that you're selling to, or it just comes in and it gets, so I just don't know if the appraiser really understands that this is not, we're not selling a road shore allowance as is most of the time is the situation. This is actually going to create a whole nother zone. He's going to rezone to W1, and it's a valuable piece of property.
My experience with the appraiser that we use through you, Mr. Mayor, my experience with the appraiser that the municipality uses is he's very savvy. He very much understands that he's the uniqueness of some of the situations he does appraise. I will bring it to his attention, though. That would have been my intent anyway.
Okay.
Because you're right, it's unique based on how it's going to value the existing property. So even the municipality will take care of that on behalf of the residents.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Are there?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. A comment, really. Margie?
Oh, Margie. Okay,
Lady?
sorry. I was
Got my
trying to see
hand
whose square was lighting up here. Go ahead, please.
I have my little hand up. I hope that's how I indicate.
Yes, yes, I see it.
I just want to express my sincere appreciation to council and to the municipality for answering my question regarding water access lots and parking and launching. I am thrilled that that theme sort of continued through the planning, and would respectfully suggest that in all planning items that involve waterfront properties, that should be a key component in planning. Not only having deeded access where reasonable, but also the extent of that deeded access. One, you know, I mean, what do water access folks have a reasonable expectation of? 1 parking spot, 2, 10. I have watched my neighbors on both sides of the debate around our small lake. And it has been awful to see that it has torn our small lake apart. Within the next couple of weeks, parties on both sides of the debate will be in court, duking it out in court. And had there been that parameter when the lots were planned around how much parking people could expect, they wouldn't be here today. So I'm hoping that moving forward, council can incorporate that as part of their standard in planning for water access lots. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment. I was gonna say here, here.
Mhm.
Okay, are there any other questions from the public? If not, I believe we are in the home stretch here. Can I get a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw fees?
I'll move,
I'll move.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. And did I hear Councillor Gorham Matthews?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, she's nodding her head. Okay. That bylaw 41-2021, the confirmatory bylaw for the council meeting of Tuesday, September 21st, be given a first, second, third, and final reading and is passed as of this date. Any objections? Thank you. That's carried. And now the motion to adjourn, please, at 9:33.
I will move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councillor Woods. And I'm assuming that no one is opposed to that. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and perseverance. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Our next meeting, our next council meeting is, I believe, is October the 5th. That sound right, Madam CAO? No.
Our next regular council meeting, Mr. Mayor, is October 4th. However, we have an official
yes.
plan amendment meeting on September.
Well,
30th.
that was the point that I was going to make. I apologize. But I wanted to make sure that people knew that there is the meeting on the evening of the 30th to consider the official plan amendments. But anyway, those are our next two meetings. Enjoy the rest of your evening and your week. Stay safe. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Right.